Welcome to Hello Kind Soul Podcast, where we raise the vibration of kindness on a global scale. I'm Dr. Ebony Green, your host, and I'm super excited to be with you today. If you want to follow us on all major platforms, look us up at Hello Kind Soul Podcast. And if you want to follow me, look me up at E Green Equity. I hope you enjoy the episode. Have a great day. Welcome to Hello Kind Soul Podcast. I'm super excited to be in the community with you today. Quick announcement, we have launched our Hello Kind Soul merch for our Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So do please check out the website. There's some awesome stuff on there. And so what we try to really do is make sure that we spend time creating things that matter and of value to the world and spreading awareness in all ways. So hopefully you'll join me on that journey. Today, I wanted us to jump in and kind of think about this notion of retirement, right? And so lately I've been toying and tinkering and being curious about what does it mean when you retire, right? And so I have some people near and dear to me who, more than one actually, who retired recently. And so I've had conversations with them and we talk about like, what do I do now? What does this life really mean? And it makes me think about this notion of retirement and how it's connected to what feels like unproductivity, which I don't actually think is the case. What I actually think the case is that is people decide when a season of your life is done, right? And you retire from that season. You don't retire from life. You don't retire from being productive. You don't retire from creating great change in the world. You're just letting go, right? As in last week, I talked about relinquishing control. You're relinquishing the control that you had on that career, and it allowed you to think about and be curious about what the next version of this could be, right? The next iteration of you, if you will. And so I've really been thinking about it a lot because it's bringing people a lot of angst and saying, like, I'm so used to all of these things I used to do in this particular career, and now it's like nothing. And I think the reason it's really irking people is because what we do in this world is that we're taught to go out into the world and work hard. And the challenge with that is, yes, we all go out, we work hard, but no one lets us know that there's a time when it's okay to take a rest, right? There's a time when it's okay to kind of sit back in your body and find and explore what peace really looks like for you. And so often when you do, then you feel guilty because you're actually taking time to relax. So here's what I want us to think about. Like, you know, there are a lot of people in this world who spend their entire life contributing to the world in a variety of ways, typically through this notion or idea called career. And when they end doing that, they don't really take any time to really sit down and think about like, well, what is this next canvas? Like, what does this next painting need to look like, right? Because now you have this blank canvas that you get to kind of write on with no rules, right? And that this is an opportunity in a season to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it. And for many people, when they talk about their career, many of them love it. Most that I tend to talk with, while they loved their career, they all had some critiques about where they worked or what they did or different ways they could have done it better, right? But the challenge is, when they walk away from that place, they feel this lack of connection, right? Like to the people and to the vision, to the mission, to whatever they were doing. And so I wanted to come on here today and kind of just give some folks some permission to sit back in your body, right? Take time to be curious about what next potentially could look like without creating restraints around what that needs to be, right? Like you've done the very thing that people have asked you and called you to do. You've gone into the world and you've created this amazing impact that hopefully ripples for the next 20, 30, 40 years of your life, right? There's a legacy attached to what you did and how you showed up that you should be proud of. And with that season or the ending of that season is also this amazing opportunity to rest. And resting does not mean you're unproductive. Resting does not mean you're not connected. Resting does not mean that you're unworthy or unvaluable in this world. What resting does is it allows you to reset all of the things and to process all of the things you've done, right? To really claim and appreciate and find joy in looking back at a season to say, look what I've done, look what I've created, well done, right? And I want y'all to do that freely and realize that part of the gift of retiring from that season is being able to create, mastermind what next looks like, right? And I liken this to like when I left my full-time quote unquote job in the system and started to build my own. And there was about 30 to 60 days that I was wildly uncomfortable in my body because I wasn't running around. There was no frenzied creation, products coming out and solving problems every 2 seconds, right? Like I didn't know what to do with the piece of it all. I didn't know what to do with the slow work, right? And so I really, really struggled to find a sense of purpose. Like even though I knew I was doing something great that was going to create great change in this world, that to me, there was still a disconnect from an everyday thing or place I could point to say, I did something there. I created change in that way, right? And so I totally get where y'all are coming from in this season of retirement. I totally get why it feels wildly uncomfortable. Because the other thing that we forget is that we're being conditioned in a society that says, these are the things that give you value and worth, and these are the things that don't. And so oftentimes we don't actually realize that we have become a part of a machine that tells us the more we put out, the more we're worth. The more we put out, the more we're worth. Here's the thing that I've said multiple times in public, on the pod, all types of stuff, which is I do my best work when I am rested. I do my best work when I get to figure out what it is on a global scale that I'm hoping to create. I do my best work when I feel a sense of peace in my body and in my spirit. And so I would tell you to persist beyond the place of feeling that you're disconnected from the change in the world. I would tell you to resist the judgment you feel for yourself because you're not running at the pace of, as fast as you can. I watched this interesting video the other day, and I don't know where it came from, if it's real or not, but there was a race. It was like a real race, and they put like a hare, a rabbit, and a turtle, and they were like running. And I guess the point was to see which one got to the end. And it was wild because they were real animals and no one was bothering them. And the rabbit like ran and then stopped and got curious and distracted. And the turtle just kept walking. Like, I'm gonna just do my thing. Like, this is what I do. And the people like trying to get the rabbit to move, and the rabbit's just kind of running all over the place and like getting distracted, and the turtle's like doing his thing, right? And so before you know it, the turtle wins. And I'm like, I've heard the phrase, it's not how you start out, it's how you end up, all that stuff. But to see it in real time, it made me chuckle, but it also helped me really think about this idea of like, if you take time when you retire from your season in that particular career to find a space of rest and reflection and peace and joy and be curious and really hone in on intentionality, like what do I want to intentionally create? I wonder if you get to the end of that faster than if you just keep running as fast as you can and doing all these things, right? Because on the face of it, when they put the rabbit down, I was like, oh, he's going to win for sure. She's going to win, whatever. And the rabbit was a hot mess, like all over the place. And the turtle was laser light, right? Focused. And so the reason I say that is I need you to think about, well, what am I willing to commit to in this season as I decide what next looks like? How am I willing to think about the change that I want to create now as it's separate and apart from the thing I did? And for some people, you might be an extension of what you did. So you might actually go and decide to do exactly the same thing in your own company. For other people, they may go from, the CEO of a really high-powered company to selling incense in another country, right? Like the point is, whatever you do it because you want to do it. Do it because it brings you a sense of joy. Do it because you feel like it continues to help push you to this place of purpose, right? But the idea that you're somehow unworthy because you've decided to retire from a season that you have dedicated your entire life to does not mean that you no longer have value. It does not mean that you're like out the pasture and somehow now there's an expectation for you to just kind of sit around all day. But certainly you're deserving of time to be curious and playful and childlike about what could this next be, right? All the things people complained about at the job they were working at, right? The things they didn't love, you could potentially decide, well, I'm going to go try to solve for those things, right? Because maybe some of those things were something that you could solve for outside of the organization, but within the organization was really difficult to do. And so it could be an opportunity and an invitation for you to be more creative around how do I solve the problems that I was witness to and a part of in this organization? Is there something I could do outside of it that would actually support it, right? There are all these things. What I don't think is helpful is the level of negative self-talk that people engage in who have disconnected from the season because they don't know how to say out loud, I'm really struggling with this season and I'm not really sure what next looks like. And I remember, I think I've told this story before. I remember a friend of mine, I post a lot of information about finding your best self, taking time to reflect on what next should look like, all the things. And a friend of mine reached out to me and was like, why are you always happy? Why are you always talking to people about self-reflection and finding peace? And you can't really do that. And then she retired. And about 5 months after she retired, she reached out and was like, I totally get it. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, I totally get it now. What she was speaking to is the fact that she then understood that in order to even envision, to some extent, what next looks like, you have to be willing to engage in a level of self-reflection and sit still with yourself. You have to be willing to spend time being curious about the thoughts that come up where you feel there might be synergy or energy or opportunity to walk in a different direction. But the biggest piece is that you have to give yourself permission that you are in this season and that you are deserving to decide the what, the when, and the how. And while that sounds really easy, even when I had just left and started building my company, it's really difficult. And it's really difficult because we are hardwired to do things a certain way. There are things we believe about who the most valuable people are in the world and what those attributes that they have that we look to, right? The who, the what, and the when, or the how, all of that is a lot harder when you get to create them and structure them from zero. Because we step into a role with a very prescribed set of duties that we engage in. So we don't really get to talk about the how or the what unless we're building an initiative from the ground or starting something off and wherever we are. But oftentimes the worst part is that there's so much freedom to be had that we actually don't know what to do with it. And that's when you realize how much you've been conditioned, right? That's the sad part, is that you realize that if you lived your life in a way that you knew that you were free to dream out loud in color about what the possibilities could be, you probably wouldn't be struggling as much, right? And I was watching not a podcast, but a reel from XI, who is a brilliant, brilliant human who's an expert in AI. And part of the conversation was about this idea of like creating your imagination, right? We're living in someone else's imagination in this current world that we are bringing to fruition that was talked about from between the 40s and the 60s. And so this notion of like, if you're retired, is it possible to dream about what can you imagine this world being or doing that would be better for all folks in it, right? Like, it is important for us to be radically whimsical about what the world could be and how it would look so everyone in it could feel a sense of purpose and efficacy and agency and be able to move through it and know that they are worthy and worth it and valuable, right? As they are. And so I wonder what you could do in terms of sitting still and just imagining, dreaming a different world up, because we can go create that world, right? And so what they essentially was saying was like, if we don't think and dream up in our wildest imagination what the better version of our world could be, we will find ourselves living in someone else's imagination. And we don't want to do that. And so I say all this to say, like, there's this opportunity for us to be wildly curious about what seasons mean to us and to value that you got this far in your life. Because many people, unfortunately, don't make it to the end of that working season. And so you're one of the ones who made it. Congratulations. Don't waste this opportunity to create or construct something that you deeply value and believe in and share it with the world. Don't waste the opportunity berating yourself because you feel like I'm taking time to find a sense of peace, or I'm taking time to rest and just kind of recuperate and process all that I just did for 30 years or however long you've been doing it. Don't waste the opportunity to love on yourself and engage in some activities that you waited your whole life to engage in. So many people talk about what we're going to do when we retire, and then they don't get there. So you got there. Now, all the things you wish you could do, all the time you were out there doing it, now is the time for you engaging it unapologetically, to be free, to explore and vacation and relax and go to the spa and write or hike or paint or whatever that looks like. And most importantly, I think what you have to do is grant yourself grace that it's going to take you some time to figure out what your new normal could look like. But you don't have to define how long that's going to take. What you have to do is give yourself permission to take as long as it needs to take to find that synergy and alignment in your next role. Because there are still people waiting on you, y'all. Like I keep saying it, like every season we're supposed to create and do things that make a difference, right? Some little, some ginormous, some in the middle, but there are people waiting for you to do whatever ever next is for you. And I believe in you. I certainly know that I've seen people do far more impactful things in their retired season than in their working season and vice versa. So who knows what this season is for you, but I will tell you that you have done what has to be done. You have worked hard. You deserve every second of whatever this season gives to you. And I hope that you're willing to take the time to really lean in and believe that you are worthy and valuable of all of the things on offer. And I hope that you take the time to encourage other folks that you know are leaving to spend some time being really thoughtful about like, what does retirement look like? Because I promise you, we are living older and older and older folks. That's just the beauty of the world we're living in. And so if you retire at 55 or whatever time that is, you got like 30 more years, probably some more, some less, but you got a whole nother lifetime to do something epic and awesome. And I just believe in you. I believe in every single person out there. When you get to that time of retirement, like I'm excited for folks, but I also am like, dope. You get to live a life that's free now. You get to live a life and do some of the other things that you might have put on hold while you were raising kids or working that job or whatever. And I'm excited to see what that comes out for you. But I will say, if you need any encouragement along the way, your girl's always here for you. I will clap for anyone who gets a chance to sit still and really breathe in the air of peace and freedom and calm. And I promise you, when you find it, you're not going to be so willing to give it away. So if you need help with that, we currently offer Kind Soul coaching where we can really create vulnerable spaces for folks to show up, find their best version of them, do some deep introspective work, love on themselves in the process, and figure out what does next look like. Until next week, folks, Dr. Ebony Green, I'm so grateful that you're here. Have an amazing week. Peace.